what is mass in business?
Mm.
If your business is massive, does it mean it's big? And it's not necessarily that it's a big business, it's a dense business.
I'm Dr. Joey Fawcett. Welcome back to the Work Positive Podcast, where we coach you as an HR leader or a small business owner to grow people and profits by creating a positive work culture. I don't know about you, but my favorite science subjects in school were more biology than physics. But one of the laws of physics I do remember goes something like this: a body at rest remains at rest, a body in motion remains in motion. And I recall that you burn 90% of your fuel in a rocket launch, taking that body at rest and putting it in motion so it escapes gravity. And once you escape gravity, you can maneuver quite well from momentum. You know, companies of all sizes, especially small businesses, find themselves at rest and held captive by so many challenges today, much like gravity, right? So how do they overcome those challenges and achieve sustainable momentum? My guest today authored The Bizzix Way, Powering Your Small Business to Maximum Momentum, published with Forbes Books in 2024, and it immediately earned count them, five #1 Amazon bestseller distinctions. And it's about an innovative framework that blends the principles of physics with actionable business strategies. So Work Positive Nation, lean in, listen up, and let's learn how to power through to create a culture of maximum momentum on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. Work Positive Nation, you're in for such a treat today. My new best friend is Chip Higgins. Meet Chip Higgins. Chip, welcome to the Work Positive Podcast.
It's great to be here.
Man, we're delighted to hear you. By the way, Chip tells me he hangs out with people like Reba McEntire and Kenny Chesney because he lives in Nashville. So he just hangs out. Kix Brooks, is that one too? He hangs out with these people. So if you hear a little country music twanging in the background,
Oh yeah, I'm more likely to hang out with their stagehands, but
you could here pick this up and tote it. I gotcha. So every superhero has an origin story. What is yours with the Bizzix Way, Chip Higgins?
it's a long story. I grew up in Winston-Salem. It was a big banking town. Wachovia was still in existence at the time, and I kind of got really interested in being involved in the banking industry. And so I followed that path all through college and ended up going into banking here in Nashville in 1984. So it was about 40 years altogether. I was
Wow.
in the banking industry, and most of that time was spent serving small businesses one way or another. I mean, I was,
There it is.
working with them directly
Hmm.
as a, account manager for probably 10 years. And then there was a series of executive management roles where my job was to basically configure an experience for them at the bank. And I think, probably the shortest way I can say it is that, the evolution of the banking industry from 15,000 banks to 4,000 banks,
Mm.
the
Mm.
introduction of all this technology, there were different points of emphasis over that 30 or 40 years, as we tried to serve this segment from going from one deal at a time on somebody's desk to centralized underwriting to scoring loan applications to, online banking services and all that type of thing. And as a lot of that stuff got mastered, um, what started to emerge was how do banks become a partner on growth, outside of the
Mm.
capital? Like, what is the advisory capacity of a banker to a small business owner?
Mm.
And it was a challenging equation and very exciting at the same time, and kind of started from, well, maybe we train everybody in really good conversations to have, which worked great to some level. Found a lot of variability in the execution on that, depending on the
Absolutely.
person and the
Yeah.
training and all that.
Uh-huh.
Um, And then I kind of evolved to probably the pivotal point for me in this origin story was when I was working at Pinnacle Bank here. It's about a $50 billion bank now, and their mission was distinctive service and effective advice. That was kind of their mission statement.
Mm.
And the advice part kind of stuck out there with small business owners, like, what are we going to do?
Mm.
And I had an idea to do mastermind groups.
Okay.
It was about as scalable as I could think to be with 8 to 10 people in a group at a time over
Yep.
door to door to door.
Oh
It
yeah.
was a value added experience. And we started up mastermind. We were masterminding on the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, which is,
Oh yeah.
a very classic book.
Yep.
And I think that just kind of pushed me into a whole new idea of what I wanted to be in life. I would go to the meetings. I hosted a number of meetings before showing other people like this is how it works and it's what you need to do to create a safe place and that type of thing. And this is like a curtain pulled back. And I was just like, this is what people have needed all along. It wasn't the
Mm.
money is one thing, but kind of a consistent partner and good ideas and companionship with other business owners.
Mm.
It really took root in me. And I kind of felt, at that point, I'd seen what I needed to see in banking and left to start Bizzix. And the whole idea of it was if I can find a way to make the idea of growth really simple for a business owner, a small business owner to understand,
Mm-hmm.
um, maybe their thoughts become more focused and they get really locked into just kind of a mindset about their business. And
Oh.
I'd had, this, it's in the book, but I had this unforgettable physics teacher in high school, Sister Rita, that I was deathly afraid of. And I couldn't,
Sister
I couldn't,
Rita. Uh,
I couldn't remember much of anything other than the general concepts of it. But her
uh-huh.
presence was something that stayed with me over time, and
Yeah, she was a formidable force in the
yeah,
universe,
she was a
huh?
force of nature. And so as I got into the business world, and I'm a fairly avid reader, and I'll be reading books on business strategy and
Okay.
culture, and
Uh-huh.
I kept thinking about, well, everybody is talking about momentum, but I'm not sure there's a good understanding of momentum.
Mm.
Again, as we talked
Mm.
before the show started, like it's the easiest formula to remember, mass times velocity. Like if you can't remember
Yep.
that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I just kept wondering, like, I just wonder, if this could be developed into like the most bare bones, simple, but also universal structure for someone to put all the ideas in that would make their business have momentum. Like you can choose
Mm.
the idea, but it's got to honor the equation, basically.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
then I undertook to write the book. It came out in April of 2024.
Uh-huh.
And I've had some good results on Amazon. That was a great experience getting out of banking and meeting creative people and all that type of thing.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Now I just want to talk about it. I mean, I appreciate you having me on the show. I mean, I can't talk enough about it, honestly. Feel, I believe in it very strongly. And the more I talk to people about the simplicity of it, I think people get it. And
Mm.
it's very manageable for them to think about, does this idea fit in it or not? I mean, is what I'm doing fit into it or not? And so that's been very gratifying. That's kind of the backstory on it.
Yeah, I love it. I love the fact that you, Chip, actively listened, and discovered a need and then moved to fill that need.
Yeah.
And anything that can be simplified, I'm first in line. Okay. Because,
Sign me up, right?
that's right. That's right. Just put my name on the list. You don't even have to spell faucet right. You just get it, get me on that list. Because there's so many people who associate complexity with profundity.
Hmm.
And and it's the keen minds, it seems to me, that can maintain creative tension
Hmm.
and simplify something and take
Yeah,
something complex
yeah,
and bring it down to where anybody
I,
can
I agree,
understand
and
it.
I really hope that's what I've done with the book. It's that's been the feedback I've gotten. I mean,
Hmm.
most of the Amazon reviews that I've gotten have mentioned powerful but really understandable, and
Hmm. Hmm.
that was gratifying for me. You think about you've written so many books of your own. It's like you
Mm.
think about what you want people to experience when they have it, and when you see it,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
What are the
very
takeaways, right?
right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's talk about the Bizzix way as it relates to creating a positive work culture. What are
Mm.
some of the tenets of the Bizzix way that directly impact a positive work culture's development?
Yeah, I'll start with like how positive work culture just fits into the equation, and then
Yeah,
maybe some of the things that flow out of that.
sure.
I think the simple equation of mass times velocity, if we start with velocity, let me go back and say simple and simplistic are two different things.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So I think it is a very simple equation, but the more you get into it and think about what's involved in it, it's not it's not like you could do it tomorrow. I think it takes a lot of thought and
Yeah.
kind of engineering that like the whole system's going to hold together. So when you think about that equation and you say, well, velocity, let's take velocity. Well, you can't even get to velocity without talking about energy.
Hmm.
And part of the discovery process in writing my book was um, I felt strongly about the idea, but I felt very weak on physics. I mean, I felt like I basically understood it, but I needed an expert, and I had a long conversation with this friend of mine who's a Caltech graduate. He taught at Vanderbilt, but he was in a different role at the time. We spent a lot of time on the phone, and the more we talked, I felt more confident about it. And just this whole idea of energy came out of it. And it's just like,
Mm.
well, his challenge was like, I just want to know more about that. Like, I don't work in the business world. So, like, if you say something like a vector or energy, like, what would you mean? What would you mean by that in a business context? So it really made me think.
Mm.
And I think the energy part, um, the first part is this like vibrational field of what you're seeing, the change that you can make, and constantly bouncing back and forth between where you are in this great vision or calling that you have to make life better for people.
Hmm.
And it's like in the book I talk about Sarah Blakely at Spanx, and
Oh,
I think
yeah.
that's a very powerful idea, that she had.
Hmm.
But that kind of takes you into um, the culture part of it to me really comes when you think about, okay, I'm personally on fire for this idea.
Hmm.
How do I get that to everybody? And you realize like the power to me, the power grid in a company is the culture. I mean, is what
Hmm.
carries that energy across. And you don't need a very big breakage for the thing to stop.
Yeah,
You
for
know, it's
sure.
like I mean, you have to be so protective about it. And I tell a story in the book. Just a small business owner might be really daunted at culture, like, well, that's something for Jack Welch or whatever. And I tell a story in the book where I was working at a bank that had been through some very difficult integrations with the mortgage company. It was really, really difficult, and
Mm.
took a great culture to one that was very combative, and
Mm.
people just weren't getting along. And their solution was to bring in the mood elevator, the Larry Sendelany mood elevator, and it really can't get more simple than that when you talk about positivity, because basically they're saying like, and in the research for the book, I mean, I've read about this, like it's statistically scientifically proven that there are higher vibrational fields for human beings than others.
Right.
And our goal was to always be curious and interested. And I can't remember what the top one was, but it was, creative or collaborative or something like that. So,
Hmm.
and there's eight floors to the top, and you can kind of compare where you are with your emotions to, what's on that elevator. So,
Hmm.
um, I'd say, that to me is the big culture part of it. And when you get into like, well, how do I start building that? There's a lot of things that have to happen. One, is that vibrational field an attractive force? I mean, is it something that's going to attract people that feel equally committed to the mission that you have,
Mm.
And there are a
Mm.
lot of ho-hum business plans out there. There are a lot of Me Too operators that,
Uh-huh.
see a money-making opportunity. And I think
Sure.
the authenticity of that person on that mission is always going to win in the end. If you have a leader that is truly inspired to do something that helps humanity or business or whatever it is,
Mm.
it's going to have an attractive force, just as in science, in physics, 98% of the mass of anything is at the core in the nucleus. And
Right.
it's a combination of, protons and neutrons. And
Hmm.
so it's that attractive force. Now, the other part is like, well, how do you find the people? How do and this is where you really get into this idea of mass that, what is mass in business?
Mm.
If your business is massive, does it mean it's big? And it's not necessarily that it's a big business, it's a dense business.
Mm.
Density means that the quality of the person, the values, the code, the experience level, and all that have to be very high for you to be the weightiest offering in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And going back to my John Maxwell days, the law is law of the lid, and you can't lead beyond your lid level. There's a sub lesson in it that you can't recruit beyond your leadership ability.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you're a 9 or a 10, you're probably going to get some 8s and 9s, but if you're a 5, you're probably going to be getting 3s and 4s, and that
Absolutely.
really affects the whole system.
Yeah,
So I
well,
think,
and thinking about it from an energy standpoint, that's why we in Work Positive Nation talk about attracting top talent
hmm
as opposed to recruiting. We want to attract, and that means that we do the polarity work
hmm
inside on our energy and make
That's
sure that we're
interesting.
guarding
Yeah,
it and keeping it positive, right? And then we attract uh,
yeah, yeah. I
those
love
who are
that.
at,
I
yeah,
love that. Yeah.
yeah, attract that
And
top
then,
talent.
the other part is just the connection part. And what I say in the book is that I'm really confident in this, but you might blow me away with your own science knowledge. Is
I hope
the difference between
biology instead of physics.
right. The difference between a mixture and a compound is bonding. And
Mm,
when you're bonding things, I mean there's an energy experience that happens that creates heat. And
mm,
that's where, a culture that is based on connectivity not only makes it, if 98% of it is based on, what's at the nucleus, the rest of it is all packing and how everything is packed together.
mm,
So you have this thing that's simultaneously building mass because people are gathered around values, vision, mission, and each other, their
mhm,
lives. But
mhm,
um, while that is going on, I mean, there's excess energy produced because of the great experience that people are having about being connected to each other. So I
mhm,
think that is probably um, the most aligned things I can say about the Bizix way in workplace culture. I think the third part of the energy equation, I think this is really important. I would love to know, what you all say about this. Is that you've got your own energy as a leader, this vibrational field. You're
mhm,
building a culture to distribute that.
mhm,
What's often forgotten is like if I plug something in the wall, it's going to light up for a minute. If I unplug it, it's going to go dead. But that's not the way with your people.
mm,
And every person on your team is his or her own energy source that you have an
mm,
opportunity to tap into for the benefit of the company. And
mhm,
I think that we've gotten to a place, we were talking earlier about job applications and 300 apps for a single. Um, it feels commoditized a lot of times, but we have to respect that like there's a whole person coming into work with all their hopes and dreams, and
mm.
that we have to honor that and encourage it, and also like fold it into the company. And I love to tell this story when I was working with Forbes on my book, and I went to Charleston to meet with some of them. Um, I walked into the main headquarters floor, and there are like screens all over the lobby with this like graphics on it. And some of them look like child drawings and stuff. To
Those are
pull
mine,
somebody,
thank you.
I had to pull somebody
Yeah.
aside and say, "Hey, what's going on? Is this you have a craft time every day?" And
That's a good idea. I like
this
that.
guy said, "No, that's our dream board." And I
Mm,
was like, "Well, what is that?" And he said, "Well, every year, everybody here makes their own dream board, and they
wow.
tell every person here at the company what their hopes and dreams are for the year, and we
Mm,
all kind of lock onto that, and we can encourage that and try to get people. And then, at the end of the year, the CEO, uh, you know, chooses somebody to achieve the dream. It happened to be my book cover designer that won it,
oh,
and
wow.
he got to go to Vancouver or somewhere. But
Uh-huh.
I think it's so often overlooked that this idea of the whole person coming to work, I think, is really
Yeah.
important, and that
Yeah.
every person within the context of what you're trying to accomplish on your vision has their own life with their hopes and dreams that you've got to fold into what you're doing, or you've just lost a very valuable energy resource. And I hit the energy chapter really hard. This is one of the most telling things that happened in my interviews with Marcus was we got into a discussion about speed and energy, and this is an equation I could never recreate.
Hmm.
But basically, what he shared with me is that speed and energy have this interesting relationship. It's a squared relationship.
Hmm.
So if you want to go twice as fast, you need four times the energy. If you want
Hmm.
to go three times as fast, you need nine times the energy.
Hmm.
And it just resonated with me, as a banker, um, looking back on it, how many businesses ran out of energy before they ran out of cash. It's almost predictive. And
Hmm.
so I think all this, the positivity, the maintenance of, great energy fields among people, all of it, like you can't do enough of it. I mean, it's just like one of the most critical things that you can do.
Yeah, and trying to minimize the activation energy required to begin to achieve that momentum to get you headed in the right
Mm.
direction is really, really important. I know in positive psychology, Sean Aker and others have written about the 20-second rule. That was Dr. Aker's, was that if you can activate whatever the new habit is or whatever it is that you want to do in 20 seconds or less, you're more likely to do that because
Hmm.
willpower, to your point, taps out. And
Yeah.
that's the energy you're talking about. Another thing you made me think of was that it's not just connectivity because you can unplug yourself, but there's an alignment there
Hmm.
that makes you a part of the circuit. It's just very sustainable because you're constantly connected, and that's a level, if you will, of intimacy that it seems to me is a real momentum booster for
Oh yeah,
small businesses.
I agree. And there's I don't want to like spill the whole book out here in the time we have together, but
That's okay.
uh,
I'll
I
get a
just
copy so I can remember it. How about that?
yeah. But there is I think there's a real event driven kind of nexus of all this that is the onboarding experience of an employee
Mm,
as they enter the organization. And
yeah.
um, that immediate bonding with the values, vision, mission, and understanding and internalizing what that is. I've been through some really bad onboarding experiences that, it's kind of like
Yeah.
you
It's
go back to the
atrocious,
cube,
isn't it?
you go back to the cube and,
Yeah.
there's plastic plants that have 3 inches of dust on them and a bunch of empty boxes, and they tell you that's where you're going to sit, and then
Yeah.
then then this beautiful experience I had at Pinnacle where they were ready for me. They were excited that I was getting there. People wanted to know me, and then ultimately Terry Turner, the CEO and founder, spending 3 full days with every employee in the orientation
Wow.
process, which is
That's
kind of unheard
crazy.
of.
Yeah, very much so.
And it's kind of like, I don't know what the analogy would be, but it's kind of like, you know, that little investment you can make today that just pays dividends over time. And I think that is kind of
Right.
that alignment that you're talking about, that people are plugged in from the beginning, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And you get that one chance to make a first impression,
Yeah,
right?
right. Yeah.
And so 3 inches of dust on a plastic plant, that's gonna that would send me screaming for the door, right?
Well, it
Chip
started it
Higgins.
started it started with genuine surprise that I had showed up for work that day, like the first.
Oh, you're here. We thought you were starting. Well, we really didn't know when you were starting. Dr. Joey here with a question. What if the key to growing your work culture hides in plain sight? Take the free Work Positive Culture Assessment to discover it. Get insights in less than 4 minutes that transform your culture so you grow people and profits. Just answer 13 simple questions and discover your culture stage, your strengths, and get personalized next steps. Receive your free aha culture moment at workpositive.today. Go to workpositive.today right now. Chip Higgins is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. In the show notes, you're going to find a link to his book, The Bizix Way. Uh, go over to Amazon where you're buying books already and get yourself a copy. But it'll be there if you're doing something else right now. If you're driving while you listen to podcasts, please keep your eyes on the road. Right. So, what are some of the challenges, Chip, to aligning and energizing for maximum momentum the Bizix way? What are some of those challenges you're seeing, particularly culture related today?
think that it's always I don't know that it's really the culture today, but you talked about alignment. I think that
Hmm.
it's um in a labor market that has been so tight for so long. Um, I think some of the discernment about who a person is, what values they already embrace and represent compared to the ones that the company says are important.
Mm.
I think if there's not a really strong values alignment, it's very detrimental to energy and really the overall momentum of the company. It's very distracting. I think that um,
Changes the polarity quickly, doesn't it?
yes, yep, it does,
You can call
and
it
you end
negative
up
or
you
toxic, whatever you want
yeah.
to call it, but it just dead ends it and heads in
Yeah.
the opposite
At
direction.
the end of the book, I have six chapters that kind of walk through the whole momentum equation, and then the last two chapters, one is on friction and one's on leverage, and
Mm.
um, there's a lot of financial talk in that, but there's also just kind of business talk in it about like in the leverage chapter, we talk about systems, and like have you built systems that are leverageable when you want to move? They're going to take you from one place to another very quickly.
Hmm.
Um, the friction chapter was is kind of fun but painful at the same time to talk about friction in a business context because
Yeah, yeah,
um, there we wouldn't get through life without good friction. I mean, I feel like
absolutely.
if we didn't have something to grip on, we'd be in
Yeah,
a lot of trouble. But
right.
the idea of goals that people adhere to is really central to the book. But it also just talks about like how hot things can get and how fast. And I would say this values alignment issue to me is like one of those ones where if you haven't built a discipline for dealing with different points of view uh,
Hmm.
and dealing with inherent conflict in an organization, you're always going to find yourself taking energy out of a forward momentum towards something into we're trying to hold it together.
Mm.
And so I just really stress, it's the same thing with values, just like, well, so and so doesn't, live the laws or the principles, and it, creates a lot of negative energy in the company, and that energy is just a detriment to moving forward. As I said a minute ago, when it comes down to it, you need all the positive energy that you can get to move in the direction that you've defined, and
Mm. Yeah.
anything that inhibits that, you really ought to work on getting it out.
And I like what you're talking about on a couple levels here, and that is that the values are part of the core.
Hmm.
And so, in that attracting top talent, that's a conversation we need to have. And so often we dead end at technical skills
Right.
as opposed to discovering that values alignment. That's critically
Yeah, and I think
important.
that that's probably representative of where, what I'm seeing today is the how tight the labor market is, how great the need is for people, that a difficult step like that of discernment about value, who a person is,
Mm-hmm.
can get overlooked very quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
the other one that I would say is maybe on us or our generation is just this persistent. Um, I guess as we get older, we sound like our parents, and the problem is always the young people.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I was
You
going to hell in a handbasket, and it was Elvis and the Beatles' fault.
Right. And so I think that is, I don't know, you're in the world and you have the vocabulary better than I do, but I don't know if it's a like a growth opportunity for leaders, owners, managers to adopt a more empathetic view of the world about what
Mm,
people are and they're capable of
yeah. Oh, wow,
without
that is
saying
so true.
they're a younger person and I'm going to have these types of problems. I mean, I just found that most of the young people I meet are almost anxious about being successful. They're
Mm,
not. I don't find that they're disinterested or lazy. I think they're probably over kind of overstimulated about how they're going to be successful and they're in a hurry.
mm,
There's
mm.
always just something good in that can be put to work for you, you know.
Oh, amazingly good and a resource that can
Yeah.
be catalyzed,
Right.
right?
Right.
And they can reverse mentor us
Hmm.
in our generation, right?
Right.
That's an exciting thing for me. Hey, okay, I don't own the
Oh,
company, but I can learn from you. So
right.
teach
Yeah,
me.
that's for sure.
But it is incumbent upon us, and there are no excuses. And I've said many times that it's we as boomers have done a poor job, right? In so many ways, they saw, and I guess we're talking about Gen Z, some millennials
Hmm.
as well. They saw that we had the highest divorce rate of any previous generation, the highest
Hmm.
addiction rate. I mean, we've done a great job of screwing up life. So of course they don't want to necessarily replicate our work patterns and things like that because they've seen what a
What's
disaster
wrong?
it is.
What's wrong with wanting something better,
That's right. Oh
right?
man, 100%. So you and I both know small business owners who are selling their companies at our stage of life for pennies on the dollar
Hmm.
just to get out from under it because you can't find anybody who wants to work today and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But man, what a golden ticket opportunity
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
to
I agree.
learn from each other and to set up a learning organization where we can move forward the Bizzix way. Chip
Yeah.
Higgins is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive podcast. Man, we could just go on and on and on. And I want to invite you, Work Positive Nation, to make sure that you go on and on and on with Chip because he's got some amazing things going on. Uh, Tools that you can leverage to grow your own business, to grow your culture in your business, whether you're a small business owner, an HR leader, down in the show notes, you'll find Bizzix.com. That's Bizzics.com. Tell us what we're going to find when we go to Bizzix.com, Chip.
Oh, Bizzix.com is on my master website, and I'll give you a little secret. In the book, I've got a QR code at the end of every chapter, which takes you to kind of a hidden place on my website that
Oh,
is
sweet.
the Bizzix Way resources. And there
Oh,
are probably 20 to 25 either business planning resources or things like an energy check. I've got a 15 question energy check that covers those three components of like,
oh, nice.
what's your vibrational field for what you're trying to accomplish? What do you think the
Mm,
culture's like, and what are you finding in your people? So some of it
mm,
is assessment and some of it's work. Like,
hmm.
there's a business plan in there. There's cash flow forecasting tools and that type of thing. So
Oh, sweet.
um, that's a really really rich section. And again, it's Bizzix.com. I guess that'd be the forward slash Bizzix Way resources. So that
Okay.
would be, and
But if we
there's
get the book, all we got to do is scan the QR
that's it.
code, right? Yeah.
Scan the QR code,
I
and
love it.
you'll
I
be in.
love it. I can't
Yeah.
wait to get there. And also in the show notes, you'll find his LinkedIn URL, his URL to his profile. So that's a great way to message you and ask questions
Oh yeah,
and learn
definitely.
more.
Yeah.
Okay. I absolutely love that. So in thinking about the Bizzix way, Work Positive Nation is going to want to know one thing because we all want one thing to do starting today to create a positive work culture, the Bizzix way. What's your one thing, Chip Higgins?
I really think it's the value system, and to be really clear about what you represent as a person as and on the journey that you're on. I I've been in a lot of places where the values system mapped to some type of marketing acronym or the company name, and it was not a like a core value of humanity of like universal principles. And I think that if we operate at just a level of saying we're nice or we always follow up, there's a much deeper word for what you're talking about that would fall into. And
Mm,
I think when you aspire to a value like that, we talk a lot about Ben Franklin in the book, and his whole virtue development process, the 13 virtues. Pick something that is universal, that your employees will feel like they've become a better person by adopting those values. Another powerful idea to throw in there is like, if I went to work at a place where I felt really positive that I was going to become a better person just by working there, I don't know what the financial compensation would be to take care of that because I want to be a better person for my family and everybody I meet in the community. So if you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about integrity or you're talking about generosity or things that are universal principles, I'd go right to the heart of the matter about what is this organism? What is the business? What and it's very, what is the DNA that is going to make you be successful with your customers and show people how that's going to help them, be better in life, better at work, better at life.
Mm. Chip Higgins, I'm better for this conversation today. I really, really am. And I
You're
thank
being
you, my
kind.
friend. No, I'm being honest. I'm being honest. I am better for this
Well,
conversation.
I am too. I just feel like we have a lot in common, and
Yeah,
I've
we
thoroughly
do.
enjoyed the time together.
And we both have granddaughters. So that's an amazing thing.
And they're
Thank you.
both perfect.
In every way.
What are the odds?
Right, right. They took after our wives, right? Thank you so much for the gift of your time and wisdom today. Work Positive Nation, go right now and get your copy of the Bizix Way so that you can scan that QR code and get the secret resources that Chip's got in store for you there. Thank you so much, my
Thank,
friend.
thank you so much. I really appreciate the time.
I'm grateful you joined our conversation about creating positive work cultures that grow people and profits. Connect with me directly on LinkedIn today. Just search for Dr. Joey Fawcett or click the link that's below in your show notes. When you send your connection request, mention that you're a podcast listener because I want to give you a free digital copy of my Work Positive Team Edition book. That's a $19.95 value. It contains practical strategies that I've personally used with clients to transform toxic work environments into thriving cultures. We explore how to create a positive work culture in every single one of these episodes. Our LinkedIn connection, though, allows you and me to directly talk about your specific challenges. I personally read and respond to your messages because I genuinely care about your success in creating a positive work culture. So go to LinkedIn and let's connect. Remember to mention you're a podcast listener to receive your free Work Positive Team Edition book. I look forward to seeing you on our next episode of the Work Positive Podcast.